Should the Spurs foul? Should Miami go for the three right away? Rebound Bosh. Back out to Allen. His three-pointer.
Playoffs. Every year, us NBA fans wait a full 82 games for this moment. The hype, drama, the pressure, the build-up, and the excitement. This is what makes this league so great. The sport of basketball elevated to a position where the best players, the best teams go at it, head to head. A once-in-a-lifetime experience, where careers are defined, rivalries are cemented, reputations are crafted, and legends are born.
Irving and Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown.
The playoffs, though, wouldn't be what they are without their accompanying storylines. The underdog, the villain, the hero, the favorite, the player with something to prove, the redemption arc, the revenge arc. This season's playoffs have had no shortage of these storylines that make the NBA so fun to watch.
Petey, I thought we've seen it all. We have not seen it all.
Number 4. The Grizzlies proving they are legit. Ja Morant and the Grizzlies got off to an electric start this season. So much so, Ja Morant was getting D-Rose comparisons and MVP murmurs. We all remember that. With the Grizzlies going on massive winning streaks and upsetting top-tier teams like the Warriors and Suns, they've certainly raised their bar astronomically. With the decline of teams like the Jazz, Nuggets, Lakers, and Clippers, their spots in the standings were ripe for the taking for the young Memphis team, which has quickly become a fan favorite for many and become a dark horse contender for the title. Man, whenever they go on the fast break, you already know a sick highlight is about to take place.
Mobley, smothered by Jaren. Loose ball picked up by the Grizzlies. Melton. Lob. Today is one of the worst days that I've had in a long time.
Last season, this young Memphis team shocked the league when Ja Morant, in his first ever playoff debut, managed to lead the Grizzlies to victory against the Warriors in a thrilling play-in game, as well as getting a good 2 games off the first seeded Jazz. Though they may have lost the series against the Jazz, they made their statement known to all. They definitely showed themselves as a team to look out for in the future, as an up-and-coming young team, and this season they more than exceeded expectations as a second seed in the Western Conference, so much so that their success has put them into title contention. Are they ready to take that leap that they're expected to make this playoffs? It's not super uncommon for these young and promising teams to make it far. Just look at the 2012 OKC Thunder. In a conference with the Kobe-led Lakers, the San Antonio Spurs dynasty still healthy and well, and the defending champion Mavericks, the young and up-and-coming Thunder trio with Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and Harden managed to make it out to the finals. With the weakened Western Conference this season, it seems the opportunity for the Memphis Grizzlies to prove themselves in the playoffs at a high level is now theirs. Being able to beat top-tier teams like the Suns and Warriors in the regular season is one thing, and certainly increase their promise in the playoffs, but to do so in the playoffs itself is a whole different ballgame. For the first time in the playoffs, the spotlight is now on Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies. Can they get it done? Number 3. James Harden's last chance to prove himself. In the new age of player empowerment, James Harden has continued time and again to push the boundaries of how much freedom players have in today's league. His exit from Houston was controversial at the least, giving way for him to join up with Kyrie and KD in order to experience playoff success and lessen the offensive burden that he faced in Houston, where he faced an historically high amount of usage. James Harden in Houston was an absolute bucket, and I think we all remember this. MVP Harden, 35 points a game Harden, step back 3, blow by your team and get more free throws than we could imagine Harden. But like Chris Paul, Harden had built a rather conflicting playoff track record. Inefficiency, disappearing in the biggest moments, and notorious inconsistency. Harden's first season with the Nets was something a lot of people tend to forget. He had an amazing season and was even in the MVP race. But with KD and Kyrie, the expectation for this Brooklyn team had been raised by a lot. And without any playoff success in the last 3 years, and injuries, and Harden now playing considerably worse than he did, this has made Harden fade away from that top 5 player in the league we once knew him as. With how this season has gone for him, it's not hard to see Harden as now more of an arrogant player, writing off his former reputation as an MVP and having a career of empty stats on no true playoff success. But can we blame him for this situation in Brooklyn? Not at all. The Brooklyn Nets super team was cursed the minute they joined together. Harden is only getting older, and not everyone is LeBron James, someone who can carry a team every year of their career, and Harden was justified in being unhappy in his Brooklyn situation. He came there for the burden to be lessened, and in return, he did not get that. But for him to do what he did to the Nets, putting in low effort into games and pushing for a trade by playing bad was definitely unsportsmanlike, and has no doubt once more left a bad taste in people's mouth about Harden. But now in Philly, he seems to be happy. He's got what he wants, and he can finally facilitate and have the offensive burden taken off of him. He doesn't have to carry anymore. He can still be one of the main options on a championship caliber team with Joel Embiid. When Harden got Dwight Howard, things didn't work out. When Harden got CP3, they infamously lost in the third round, and the next season lost in the second round. When Harden got Russell Westbrook, they got bounced in the second round as well, and when Harden got John Wall, well, he left the team. And of course, when Harden joined up with the Nets, yeah. It seems in Philly, James Harden is finally in a contempt situation with another superstar, and this is his chance to reverse the narrative and break his mold of being a stat stuffer with no playoff success. Number 3, Giannis' GOAT case. A 2-time MVP, a Finals MVP, a champion, a Defensive Player of the Year, a Most Improved Player of the Year, with only 6 All-Star selections and 5 All-NBA teams, all at the young age of 28. It isn't every day we see someone like Giannis Antetokounmpo, a freak of nature, literally crafting a GOAT case before our eyes. Every time he does something great, we're always like, there's no way he can outdo himself this time, no matter how great his accomplishments might be. But he does. It's a generational thing. As soon as we thought LeBron James was finishing his GOAT case, we may be seeing one unraveling right before our eyes in Giannis. Last season, Giannis' performance during the Bucks run was a thing of legend. Truly historic performance. In a time where many stars leave their original team and hope to team up with other stars, Giannis is the outlier. One that stuck with his team through the bad years, never giving up on those who gave him a chance, even when it would be much easier to do else. He seems to astoundingly get better every season that we've all gotten used to his crazy numbers and skill. But the more Giannis proves us wrong and raises his play to a new level, his expectations rise. However good he may have played the last postseason, there is still a counter-narrative. A crippled Nets team that damn near almost beat them, not to mention they almost lost to the Hawks as well, while the Warriors and Clippers, who were expected to give them a good shot for their money, were injured that postseason. Now I'm not saying I'm those people, but that narrative still does exist in some form. Small form, albeit. Now with the East looking more competitive than ever, a championship run, a back-to-back one at that, as the defending champs would be the only imaginable thing for Giannis to once more reach a new level. A level which would transcend him from a superstar, but to solidify himself as the greatest player in the NBA and be a pivotal piece in a potential GOAT case for Giannis. Number 1. Chris Paul's redemption arc. It's hard to imagine regular players doing what Chris Paul is currently doing at the grand old age of 36. He's an all-star, one of the greatest playmakers in the league, a mid-range assassin, a masterful facilitator, and was even in an MVP race this season. Well, kinda. He was like 10th or 11th. I don't know what I was talking about. He's clearly 4th. Well, you get my point. But this hasn't changed in almost a decade, and you're not surprised by his feats this season. Neither is anyone else. Chris Paul has been doing this for years. Consistency is his bread and butter, and his numbers prove it. But through all his crazy numbers he's putting up, the All-NBA selections, All-Star selections, assist titles, State Farm commercials, and now being named to the NBA's top 75 players of all time, he has solidified himself as one of the greatest point guards of all time. But no matter how many times he switches teams, the narrative has only grown louder. When it all matters most in the playoffs, he disappears. But it wasn't always like this. On the Hornets, as a young rookie, he had to carry not just his Hornets, but also had the city of New Orleans on his back after Hurricane Katrina disaster. Though he managed to lead those ragtag Hornets teams with Tyson Chandler and David West, it was clear that CP3 just needed a better team to make a much deeper run in the playoffs. Enter in Lob City, where he was handed that chance. But we don't really remember Lob City for its regular season success, or the flashes of promise they showed. We remember the blown leads, the injuries, the expectations, and the impending disappointment in the postseason. Year after year after year after year, this was a complete repeat of what was happening, up until Lob City finally broke up. But CP3, he's evolved past that choker narrative to some degree, and was given a second chance by the Houston Rockets. That 2018 run, man, that was run of a lifetime, when Chris Paul teamed up with James Harden for an incredible season, up 3-2 in the Western Conference Finals, one game away from the finals. And it really looked like all he needed was an atmosphere to change. All of his past failures with the Clippers, the disappointments, it had molded him, lit a fire in him. For the first time, he was actually experiencing true postseason success, and you can tell he played with passion that playoffs, finally able to compete at the high level. Of course, until...
Paul guarded by Cook. Paul on the spin. Rebound, Lee.
Well, they might have to drag him because you know he's not going to come off the court. But he is hurt right now, limping, walking gingerly and slowly to the sideline.
And just like that, after the following season, the narrative changed. Chris Paul was washed and on a terrible contract. And like many washed terrible contracts, he ended up on a rebuilding team. But he proved us all wrong. He managed to take what should have been a garbage OKC squad and somehow on his first season there got them to the playoffs, and after coming to Phoenix has helped rejuvenate his career. Let's not get it twisted, that last year's finals run was tragic for Chris Paul, and many had written that finals as the last time CP3 would have a shot at the finals run, given all the nuances and injuries that happened to other teams. And again, we wrote Chris Paul off. His story should have been finished. He was handed so many chances, but we accepted that his fate was back to being that super good player that came so close but so far, due to his unfortunate circumstances with injury and other variables that were out of his control. And again, this playoffs and season, CP3 proved us wrong again and changed the narrative. The West is now looking more open than ever, and the Suns have only improved from last season. The Suns are once more again premier contenders for the title. CP3 has shown relentless vigor, and this playoffs, he once more has a chance to change his legacy. From the player that was notorious for being so close but so far, gone when it mattered most. And if he was to win the title this year, transform into the player that never gave up against all odds. The player who changed the narrative, came back from nothing, and after 16 years of failure and disappointment, finally reached the ultimate goal for any NBA player, giving his illustrious career the ending it deserves.